if you are going after Gen Z, millennials, or even Gen X, there's a role for you in gaming, I promise.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of the Leaderboard Insights Podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Lindberg, head of U.S. brand partnerships at Overwolf. Today, I'm excited to be joined by someone I had the pleasure of working with across multiple stops in my own career as well as hers in gaming, Sami Barnett, who leads gaming at TMA, known as the marketing arm within Omnicom Media. Sami, you have an extensive background in client service, both with endemics and non-endemics, including one of North America's largest esports organizations. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
And happy holidays, right? We're in that time frame here in North America.
It's crunch time, right?
That's right, end of the year. All right, well, let's get ourselves going and talk about some fun things here, the stuff you've been working on. I think it's great always to start with just background on you. Tell us a little bit about how you got your start in gaming, in advertising, and kind of what your current role looks like within the marketing arm.
Yeah, so I originally started working more on the account side of marketing, so keeping everybody in order, right? And then at the marketing arm, I actually started working on Doritos, and they, as everyone knows, is a huge brand in gaming. And so, in order to kind of move forward, I had to really learn gaming, and I just fell in love with the industry. It was, it's always changing. I think we all here know why you can fall in love with the industry, but from there, I actually went to work for Complexity and did brand partnerships for them. So got a little bit of experience on that side, and then came back to TMA to help run the gaming team at TMA. And so I've been back now, I think 5 years. I don't know, time's flying by. But yeah, overall about over 10 years in this industry, and no turning back now.
You've got some time. You've got some time allocated, which is fantastic. I think you sit in a really interesting spot in this industry because oftentimes advertising is just spots and dots, but sponsorships and integration is much more of a long-term conversation. It's much more of a evolutionary process. So tell us a little bit more about when a brand comes to you, right? I mean, as I know, this must happen to you frequently. Want to get into gaming? How does that conversation go, and how is it different than it might be for some of maybe your more media buying partners?
Yeah, I mean, each brand is different, right? We have brands that have been in gaming for forever that come to us and like, okay, we want to do something new. We have brands that are touching or dipping their toes into the industry. So yeah, in my role, I kind of oversee all brands. So I get, a plethora of requests. But I think really my biggest first step is identifying a role for that brand in gaming. I think a lot of people are, they assume, oh, my brand doesn't fit in gaming. It doesn't fit the normal um, criteria or standard for what you see in brands in gaming. And if you are going after Gen Z, millennials, or even Gen X, there's a role for you in gaming, I promise. The industry is huge, as we all know. There's so much opportunity, but I think within all of that noise, my biggest first step is let's define your role. What's your role in your Gen Pop marketing? Let's kind of tweak that to have your role in gaming so that when your brand is seen in this noisy industry, maybe you're showing up in different places, there's that red thread connection to what you want your brand messaging to be. What do you want the players to, or the audience to take away from when they see your brand?
Do you set timeframes with people? Like as you're having these conversations, I have to imagine that the question is like, cool, I want to do, one thing during this 4-week window or something like that. But when it comes to these types of like partnerships and stuff like that, how do you set the bar and set the thought process of how long it takes to really bring a partnership to life?
Yeah. I mean, it's different across the board, right? If we're talking, let's do something in game, the dev time can be pretty extensive, right? If you want to work with influencers, if a media buy, like those can be pretty quick, So I think timing wise normally depends on the brands of like, when are these key, because gaming's always on, right? You can always find an opportunity. And then, obviously have to work back from a timeline perspective, like you're saying, but it's really like when are the key timeframes for your brand? When do you want to make a lot of noise? Or If it's kind of, we just want to get in gaming and, it doesn't really need to ladder up to a key time frame because we've never done it before, then it's more so along the lines of, okay, well, let's find the key timeframes in gaming. When are some big things happening, big launches, with big events, TwitchCon, those kinds of things. So it's really lining up to a key time frame on either side, and then determining, okay, the role, like I said, and then what partner makes sense for your brand. And from there, it's the timing's dependent on what the partner is and what we're actually doing, but I try to set the stage very early on for brands, especially ones that aren't aware or have never been in the industry. I try to, hey, this is going to take maybe 4 to 6 weeks. This one maybe longer or shorter. So I try to say that at the forefront so that we can be planning throughout, really.
Is there a category that you've gotten into gaming that people would not expect? Or is there a category out there that you have always wished you could get into gaming?
Yes, a category that I wish I could always get into gaming that I don't have right now would be an auto brand. I mean, I think we've seen some auto brands dip their toes, but I think there's so much opportunity. And then, obviously one of our biggest clients is an insurance brand, and I don't want to take the credit for getting them into gaming, but I think that's a very good example of a brand that you would think, oh, I don't belong in gaming. There's no role for me here. But they are killing it, and they show up all over the space. And it's just a really good example of your brand can exist in gaming, and it can do it well.
Those golden khakis are really fantastic. I'm a big fan.
Yes.
Awesome. So I think you've talked a lot about kind of the needs that you have to have within this space, the important aspects of the why and the how. When you're working with brands, we've seen plenty of brands do a sponsorship and it stops with like a logo on the broadcast or maybe an activation in there. But there isn't really a ton of true sponsorship activation that drives engagement, drives brand impact, really gets them all, past the page. When you're having these conversations with clients, and building deals and opportunities in this space, what are the non-negotiables that you need to have from the client side and from the publisher side in terms of being able to actually bring these solutions to life?
Well, in the most successful terms, I think for the brands that I've seen success in this situation, on the brand side, there's a level of education that needs to happen that we start with first of like, it's not a new industry, but to a lot it is, right? And so there's, doing the research, understanding the audience, understanding the game in which we're, showing up in, or not the game, but the platform, right? Let's stay agnostic, platform agnostic here. But so I think there's a level of education that needs to happen. And, in what I've seen success is the brand really trusting, our expertise, and we're their agency partners, right? So there is a level of trust that needs to happen there, and it doesn't happen overnight, trust me. But I think with the brands that do trust us, there's a ton of success, and that are eager to learn and are eager to do it right. And then from a non-negotiable standpoint for partners, there needs to be a level of innovation opportunity. I think a lot of the brands that we work with, and I think this could go for most, is they want to do something new. They want to do something never been done before. They want that buzz, right? And so I think when we're working with partners, it's, showing up out beyond the logo, and what is the opportunity there. If we work with a partner for multiple years and we're not seeing this like level of opportunity to grow or innovate within the ecosystem, then that's not successful to me. I think from the get-go, we're looking for ownability opportunities to an extent, right? You don't want to come in, disrupt, and not be authentic. I had to say that word one time in this podcast, but I think there's ways that we can make sure that the brand is a fit at the forefront, and then do something really cool that also is giving back to the community and also making noise for the brand.
Yeah, let's go through that some more, because I think that there tends to be this hollow statement of, oh, never been done before. Make sure it's never been done before. And it's like, the question is that how do you balance that request for innovation with many clients and partners needs to be successful, right? Because never
Hmm.
been done before doesn't necessarily have a blueprint for success. So how do you have those conversations? How do you evaluate those never been done before opportunities to ensure that they're going to have the value that you're looking for as an outcome?
Hmm. I think it goes back to making sure that the partner that you're working with and the brand are a natural fit. Making sure that when the brand shows up, it's not going to be something so random that it's kind of just obvious that, oh, they're just trying to make a splash in gaming, right? It needs to be something that is in a natural fit. And it also needs to be something that's giving back to the community. I think both of them need to exist to go hand in hand. There's low lift things that you can do, giving the community XP, giving them cosmetics in game, whatever. There needs to be some sort of aspect if you're showing up in a buzzy, innovative way that still thinks about the community. And it's not just all about making a splash for your brand. It's because that's like gaming 101, right? Like this community is so tight knit and they're grinding every day. I hate that I just said that, but they're playing every day. So like let's knowing that is going to determine success for your brand. And so if you're showing up to make a splash, like I said, like you need to make sure that you're also making a splash with the audience because they don't care about marketing. They care about cool stuff that's going to, you know, entice them to play more. It's going to give back to their gameplay. It's going to put them ahead some way. So I think it's, making sure that you have some sort of aspect like that within the program or the activation.
Yeah, TMA is not solely a gaming focus and organization. They have access in sports and music, and so do you see more similarities with how to activate within those cohorts and communities as you do with gaming, or is it really truly like vastly different in terms of the strategy and the conversation that you have with these audiences?
I'd say it's kind of both. Like there's definitely similarities. There's, personalities, there's different platforms that you can show up with in each. But I would say that gaming is larger. There's more like it's huge, but it's also niche, right? And so the opportunities are just endless, it feels like. And um I think that, the education piece is a lot heavier in gaming than in the other cohorts. But that, I mean, I do think if you can find an activation to do with a brand that touches in multiple of these segments, that's also a great way to demonstrate success. If you can do something with a gaming influencer that also has a music tie or a sports tie, an athlete that also games, um, you're reaching multiple audiences in one stop. And so I think while the audiences and the industries are the same, they're also pretty different.
Yeah, I find that gaming seems to have more and more crossover potential the more and more I
Mhm.
see it. I mean, obviously, you spent time at Complexity. Complexity was acquired by the Dallas Cowboys. So, as you're going through this process and as you look at your tenure, uh, how much more is gaming at the intersection of pop culture than it was before? Like, where are you seeing those opportunities? And is it an easier conversation now because the Dallas Cowboys are playing video games, or Kyler Murray's out because the new Call of Duty comes out, or
Mhm.
NBA players? Like, are you finding it easier, or is it even more difficult to stand out because of the prevalency of gaming?
Um, that's a loaded question. I think it's, the conversations with brands have maybe become easier since I started because gaming is at the center of culture, like you said. Like it is, so many people play video games. And then you have mobile gaming, which encapsulates so many different people as well. So I think because it is like centric and it's, you're everyone's gaming. Like that's truly what I feel like. I think, more and more athletes and celebrities are coming out as, they also play video games. So it's definitely at the center of culture. And so it helps that conversation, the sell-in conversation, if you will. But um I think from an opportunity standpoint, there is so much you can do. And I think it does create more noise and more chatter, and it does create more of a challenge to stand up, but stand out, not stand up, and stand up. But I think that just creates more opportunity for us to go find the right opportunity. And I think, no brand is the same. And, I think with all these new opportunities, it creates a level of creativity for us to have fun. And I love a challenge. So I think, the bigger it gets, the better for all of us.
Absolutely. I told you I was going to ask you a lot of hard questions, but we're going hard questions now.
Oh, great.
I need you to dip into your
Let me
bin
take a sip
here.
of my coffee.
There you
Wake
go.
up.
Get ready to go. Let's talk about some of the campaigns you've done recently. Is there one that stands out over the last couple of years that you're really proud of? And if you do, I'd love for you to talk about kind of problem that you were solving, choices that you made, and kind of what the outcome and results were, not just for the brand, but also, I think, as you've talked about many times, what was the community result?
I want to go back to State Farm. And this wasn't within the past couple of years, but this is one that I think for brands that are listening to this that are hesitant to get into gaming because their brand doesn't fit within gaming. And we just talked about sports. So this is a nice kind of crossover one. So State Farm, historically has been really big in the NBA with signage, stanchions, you name it. They've been a big player in the NBA. And so with the evolution of Jake from State Farm, the goal was to identify with a younger audience, right? Bring in, start seeding awareness with not necessarily people that are purchasing insurance right now, but when they've seen State Farm, they're like, oh, I've seen Jake, I've seen State Farm, I'm comfortable with them, and, brings them to the lower funnel at some point. So, like I said, they historically were really big in the NBA. They did a lot. So it just kind of naturally made sense to take what they're doing in the NBA and apply it to NBA 2K. So we started off with, the in-arena signage, stanchions, all of the stuff that you'd see State Farm doing at an actual basketball game in-game. And then we went further and we brought Jake in as the first branded NPC in 2K ever, which obviously was buzzy. It was the first time that title had, brought in a branded NPC like that, and especially for an insurance company, right? And the audience was so accepting of it. They loved Jake. Jake just has everyone loves him. So it does help. But, and then we also brought in the neighbor goods store, and it was, different clothing items that you can purchase. I mean, NBA 2K is known for hoops culture, right? It's not only basketball, but it's the fashion side of the sport. And so giving back to them with, in-game outfits and, cosmetics was very successful. The audience loved it. And we've been in 2K ever since, kind of evolutionizing what we can do with Jake. And there is a lot of opportunity there. We continue to grow. But I think that's just a really good example of an easy, State Farm identifying their role in basketball, easily transforming that into an in-game appearance, making a splash, and also giving back to the community and continuing to grow over the last 4-ish years. So I think that's, just for any brand that's, hesitant or not ready to jump in, or they want to jump in, but they don't know how. Look at what you're doing from a Gen Pop or, other sector perspective. And an easy way to kind of transform that is doing the same thing, but in the video game world.
Yeah, I know that there's a couple of folks on the State Farm claw on the marketing side who come from gaming companies and gaming backgrounds and stuff like that. Are you seeing that more when it comes to non-endemic conversations, that people are either familiar with gaming, have worked in gaming? Are you starting to see that more and more as you get to the directors, VPs, and CMOs within these non-endemic businesses?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that people are paying more attention to. And, they have a base level of knowledge around. I think And that's really all that I ask. Honestly, I think the expertise and the nitty-gritty of it all can come from our team. But yeah, I would say that there's definitely a level of growth when it comes to um, the brand side marketers having more of a knowledge around the space for sure.
When it comes to experiential, right, and your expertise is really is engagement and in taking opportunities from the screen to the floor, right, and really giving people immersive experiences and opportunities and stuff like that. As we think about how those things play out in gaming, you talked a little bit about Jake and getting him into the game and getting him a part of those things. Um, how do you convince clients to think about going from a logo on a live stream or a VOD to activations in game, around game, as part of the game? How does those types of challenges and opportunities play into your conversation with clients, and how do you try and educate them on the value of those things besides just impressions and logos and stuff like that?
Yeah. I think honestly, most of my conversations are more around wanting to make a splash. So it's more of a challenge to sell them on the logo placement, the media buys, right? And so I think when you think of marketing and gaming brands, like I said, they want to come in, they want to do something new and make a splash, and that's what they're thinking about. And they actually, most of them are like, we don't just want a logo slap. And so that conversation becomes, you know, I media or success in gaming is not done through just a sponsorship or media alone. You really need both pieces of the pie, because the media side, the logo, like that is your awareness. They're constantly seeing your logo. They're going to start to almost expect it, right? But you're driving this awareness to a very dedicated audience. If your logo's on screen, think about when people are watching TV, they're also on their cell phones. They're not necessarily 100% paying attention, but in gaming they are. And so that logo does a ton more for a brand than in traditional marketing. And so, you're creating that consistent awareness through the logo, through your media buy. And then when you show up with an activation, it's, you're creating a red thread of like, oh, I've seen them here. Now I'm seeing them here. And it starts to help you own that space, right? It starts to help you, create more of a community for your brand, because they're seeing it more and more. And they've, through a media buy, have seen it a lot more than just a one-off sponsorship, right? So they go hand in hand in creating more of a consistent presence.
Yeah. It's almost as if gamers are comfortable with good advertising versus just crap, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
It's funny because we've had these conversations, and we've had a couple of programs recently with Tropicana where we won awards for bringing them into the experience. And when we did the post-campaign results, yes, the impressions and stuff like that set a good baseline. But when we had those in-game rewarded moments and rewarded challenges, all of a sudden, the brand lift score went through the roof. The purchase intent scores went through the roof, because that activation reaffirms that I'm not just seeing you in this space passively, right? Which is what you guys are really great at, is you're actually engaging that audience to play and participate and actually be a part of the experience, which I think is where you get that incremental, that exponential almost ROI for clients, which is a great place to be.
Yeah. I think the main reason I've fallen in love with this industry is because gaming was the first time that I've worked on a marketing campaign where the audience is asking for more, more marketing. If you do it right and you're showing up for the audience and you're giving back to them, they are so accepting. If you do it wrong and you don't do your research, there's a different story there. But, there's been so many times where we've done something and they're like, when is State Farm coming back? Or when is Dorito, I think it's really nice to see your work actually doing good as well. And so it's just, I love it. And I think, making sure that you're covering your bases and have all pieces of where you're showing up, every touch point, you're going to drive success and brand affinity and all of the ROI for your brand.
Yeah. I mean, OMG in general is known really well for its rates, for its strong legal and brand safety teams and stuff like that, compliance guardrails. they're well known for these things. Oftentimes, you will hear that Call of Duty or Diablo or these other games are not exactly brand safe, right? Because of violence, language, et cetera, et cetera. How do you navigate that within the company in terms of working with partners to understand? You've worked in pretty much every major game in some capacity for some client. So how do you balance those conversations around what is a brand safe place to be and where is the opportunity and the audience available for that partner?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, when at TMA, I mean, because we are a creative agency through and through, like our belief on the gaming team is that you have the idea before you have the partner. Because not only does it help you, stay at the forefront of what you're doing, it also makes make sure that the platform makes sense for your brand, but it also helps you determine, I'm not going to bring a super brand safe brand into GTA, right? That's not going to do good for anybody on either side. And so it helps you kind of determine, okay, what's right here. And then, you know, like same example, GTA having a big moment coming up, there are more brand safe brands that are like, okay, we kind of want to show up here or, be part of the conversation. And so it really just goes back to authenticity and being a brand match. I mean, making sure that what you're doing is staying true to your brand, but also staying true to the audience.
Love it.
So, I mean, there's definitely some conversations that need to happen, but I think, again, like even in the red blood titles or whatnot, you can still find a way to show up in a brand safe manner.
Love it. That's great. And it's nice to think about things more holistically and to think about areas and opportunities that don't just say, okay, none of this or none of this, right? There's lots of shades of gray in this industry.
Yeah, definitely.
As we get into 2026, let's get the crystal ball out. Let's talk about what you're excited about. You've talked a little bit about GTA. The news isn't necessarily confirming that we're going to get GTA next year.
I know.
Fingers crossed, but we'll see on that one. But as you look at 2026 and you look at how brands are engaging with video games, esports, metaverse, all these types of things, what are the things that you're most excited about, or the opportunities, or the things that you see brands doing right in this space when it comes to activating and gaming in 2026?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is probably opportunities that are going to come with AI. I think from an AI perspective, this might be a hot take. I think we're kind of at the cap of what it's going to be for a while, but how that infiltrates into gaming and even other industries, I think there's still opportunities to come. I think maybe timelines will get faster. There's going to be more that NPCs can do in games. There's going to be a level of innovation that comes along with, these companies figuring out how to leverage AI and incorporating it into their platform. So I'm excited to see if, the needle is moved there a bit and what opportunities fall out from that. I also think, from an in-person perspective, there's a lot like the crossover opportunity. I think a lot of, Super Bowl, NBA, March Madness, like there's a lot of areas to show up from a gaming perspective within more traditional spaces. And I think they're just continuing to grow. So I think creating that crossover and working with talent that touches multiple industries, I think there's just even more opportunity opening up. So I feel like those two areas, sports, music, whatever, and then, the AI advancements, if you will, are opening up a level of opportunity that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because there were 19,000 games launched on Steam in 2024. And only about 15,000 of them were never played. So it'll be interesting to see with AI now how many more games are created on Steam and how many more options there are because of that ease of creativity. And also, I think it's incredible because you're seeing new stories from new regions. You're seeing huge opportunities for people to be able to publish games where 10 years ago, publishing a game was very, very expensive. So it's exciting to see the opportunity that exists as well from AI to be able to allow more people to create new and exciting things for our space. All right. This is our one of our holiday issues. Obviously, here in the United States, we are celebrating Thanksgiving. We're at, this is that time of year. So we can't let you leave without asking the tough question of what's the one side dish that has to be on Sami's table at Thanksgiving?
Oh, I knew this is the hardest question of the whole podcast. And my grandma might watch this too. So got to think smart here. No, I'm just kidding. Definitely stuffing. I'm a sides girl through and through when it comes to all of the big meals, barbecue. I live in Texas. I'm a sides person. So my grandma's stuffing is definitely
which protein does she use? Is it chicken? Is it turkey? Is it turkey stuffing or
sausage?
Sausage stuffing. Level 99. That sounds absolutely exceptional.
Everyone's welcome to come try it.
Oof. All right, I'm hungry now. Oh my goodness, this is great. Sami Barnett, Director of Gaming at the Marketing Arm. Thank you so much for coming. We really, really appreciate you joining us on the podcast. Really happy to get all the insights, the thoughts, and obviously now we're all going to want to know where we can get your grandma's sausage stuffing, but we'll work from there. But thank you for coming on the podcast.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It was great. Always love chatting with you.
I appreciate that. All right. This has been the Leaderboard Insights Podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Lindberg, the head of U.S. brand partnerships at Overwolf, and we will see you next time.